My daughter forgot to hang up the phone. I heard Dad's too broken to be around us anymore. It's time for the conservatorship. I didn't say anything, but at that moment, something in me broke. I made one call to my Swiss banker. They came back from their Napa Valley weekend expecting their usual $50,000 monthly allowance, but there was a surprise waiting for them. The trust fund accounts were frozen, and then I realized they wouldn't just leave it alone. This was just the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October 2024, around 3:30, when my world changed forever. I was sitting in my home office in Palo Alto, the same office where I'd built a cybersecurity empire from nothing, watching the afternoon light filter through the bulletproof windows I'd installed after my PTSD got particularly bad in 2019. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd designed security systems that protected Fortune 500 companies from the worst kinds of digital attacks, but I couldn't protect myself from my own daughter's betrayal. I was reviewing quarterly investment reports when my phone rang. Chelsea's name lit up the screen, and my chest immediately warmed with that familiar mixture of love and pride that had defined my relationship with my daughter for 28 years. She was my greatest achievement, more valuable than the $120 million I'd made from selling my company, more precious than any military commendation gathering dust in my desk drawer. "Hey, sweetheart," I answered, settling back in my leather chair, the one Chelsea had given me for Father's Day 3 years ago. "How was the wine tasting?" "Oh, Dad, it was incredible." Her voice sparkled with genuine excitement. "The 2018 Cabernet was absolutely perfect. Elton knows the owner, so we got the private tour of the cellars." I smiled, picturing her in Napa Valley, probably wearing that blue sundress she loved, her hair catching the California sunshine. Since her mother died when Chelsea was 16, these moments of connection had become everything to me. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Did you remember to take pictures for the family album?" "Of course." I got some beautiful shots of the vineyard at sunset. Elton is already talking about investing in a case of their reserve wine. She laughed, that bright sound that had pulled me through my darkest PTSD episodes over the years. "Dad, you'd love this place. Maybe we could come back together next month?" "I'd like that very much." I meant it. Despite the anxiety attacks that sometimes made public outings challenging, I'd learned to manage my symptoms better when Chelsea was around. She had a way of keeping me grounded, of making the world feel safe again. Perfect. "Oh, and Dad, thank you again for the trust fund transfer last week. The extra $20,000 really helped with our vacation expenses." "You don't need to thank me, sweetheart. That's what the money is for, to make sure you're comfortable and happy." I glanced at the trust fund documents on my desk, the ones I'd signed with such joy on her 25th birthday, establishing $2 million for her security and freedom. "You're the best father in the world," Chelsea said softly. "I know this year has been hard with your episodes getting more frequent. I just want you to know how much I appreciate everything you do for us." My chest tightened with emotion. The PTSD had gotten worse recently. Nightmares about roadside bombs in Iraq, panic attacks triggered by loud noises, moments when the past felt more real than the present. But knowing that Chelsea understood, that she loved me despite my broken places, made it bearable. "I love you too, honey. Drive safely and call me when you get home." "Will do, love you, Dad." I heard the line go quiet, but not the click of disconnection. Chelsea must have dropped her phone in her purse again, something she'd done since college. I was about to hang up when I heard Elton's voice, muffled but clear enough through the phone's microphone. "Jesus, Chelsea, you're getting really good at that concerned daughter act." My hand froze on the receiver. Ice spread through my chest like a poison I couldn't fight. "What do you mean?" Chelsea's voice, no longer warm and loving, sounded tired and irritated. "The way you play up his PTSD symptoms, make him think you're the caring daughter. It's actually impressive." I felt the world tilt sideways. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my Chelsea, my baby girl, the child I'd raised alone after losing her mother to cancer. "God, Elton, keep your voice down. Someone might hear you. Relax. We're in the middle of a vineyard. Besides, it's not like anyone would be surprised. Your dad's a walking mental health crisis. Half of Silicon Valley thinks he's lost his mind anyway." Chelsea laughed. Actually laughed. "The PTSD episodes are getting worse. Perfect timing for the conservatorship filing." My vision blurred. The words hit me like shrapnel, each one designed to destroy something vital inside me. "My trust fund lawyer says PTSD makes it easy. Courts love protecting vulnerable adults." Elton's voice carried the casual cruelty of someone discussing a business transaction, especially war veterans who can't handle civilian life. "I feel bad sometimes," Chelsea said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "But $50,000 a month from the trust isn't enough anymore. Not with the Beverly Hills house, the cars, my shopping. We need access to the full $15 million. Once we control his assets, we can manage everything properly, put him somewhere he'll be taken care of, but where he can't make any more of those embarrassing scenes in public." My hands began to shake, not from PTSD this time, but from rage so pure it felt like molten metal in my veins. The military disability angle works perfectly. Who questions protecting a damaged veteran, especially one who's clearly declining mentally? "Chelsea, you're brilliant. By Christmas, we'll have everything sorted out and you can finally stop pretending to enjoy those awful family dinners where he talks about his war stories for hours." God, I know. The same stories over and over. When I was in Iraq, my Marines, the importance of honor. It's like being trapped with a broken record player. Something inside me died in that moment. Not broke, died. The father who'd believed in unconditional love, who'd sacrificed everything for his child's happiness, who'd ignored every red flag because blood was supposed to be thicker than greed. That man ceased to exist. The best part is, he'll never see it coming. He trusts me completely. Poor broken dad. So grateful for any scrap of attention from his perfect daughter. Elton laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The old soldier never knew what hit him. The line went dead. Chelsea had finally hung up. I sat in the silence of my office, surrounded by photos of a daughter who apparently saw me as nothing more than a mentally damaged ATM, staring at trust fund documents I'd signed with hands that had trembled from love, not fear. Outside my windows, Palo Alto continued its normal Tuesday afternoon rhythm, completely unaware that David Harrison, father, veteran, fool, had just learned the most devastating lesson of his 58 years. My daughter thought PTSD made me weak. She thought trauma made me vulnerable. She thought broken soldiers were easy targets for financial manipulation. She was about to learn that Marines don't just break. We adapt, we overcome, and we never, ever leave a traitor behind. Let me take you back to how this all started, because you need to understand just how much Chelsea meant to me and how deeply her betrayal cut into everything I thought I knew about love and family. It was March 15th, 2003 when I came home from my second deployment to Iraq. I remember the exact date because it was Chelsea's 6th birthday, and I'd promised her Daddy would be home for her party. The flight from Kuwait City had been delayed 8 hours, and I'd spent the entire time in that military transport plane, picturing her little face pressed against our living room window, watching for my taxi. When I finally walked through our front door in San Mateo at 7:30 that evening, still in my desert camouflage, still smelling like sand and diesel fuel, Chelsea launched herself into my arms with such force that I nearly fell backward. "Daddy, Daddy, you're home! I saved you cake!" My wife Sarah stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, holding a pink birthday cake with 7 candles, 6 for Chelsea's age and 1 extra for good luck. "Welcome home, Marine," she whispered, and I knew that whatever hell I'd survived in Iraq had been worth it for this moment. Those early years, 2003 to 2009, were the golden time. I was building my cybersecurity consulting business out of our garage, working 18-hour days to provide for my family, while Sarah battled the cancer that would eventually take her from us. Chelsea was my light through all of it, helping me organize client files, bringing me sandwiches when I forgot to eat, sitting quietly in my lap while I wrote code that would eventually protect major corporations from cyber attacks. I taught her to code when she was 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with my old Dell laptop, showing her how ones and zeros could create entire digital worlds. Programming is like building with invisible blocks, sweetheart. You have to think 3 steps ahead, just like chess. Is that why you're so good at it, Daddy? Because you think like a soldier? Maybe, baby girl. Maybe. When Sarah died in 2011, Chelsea was 16, and I was a 37-year-old widower trying to raise a brilliant teenage daughter while managing PTSD that I barely understood myself. The nightmares had started during my 3rd deployment, but they got worse after losing Sarah. Loud noises would send me diving for cover. Crowded places made my skin crawl with anxiety. Some nights I'd wake up screaming, thinking I was back in that Humvee that hit the IED outside Fallujah. But Chelsea never complained. Not once. When I had panic attacks during her high school graduation, she held my hand and whispered, "It's okay, Dad. You're safe. We're in California, not Iraq." When I couldn't handle the crowds at her Stanford orientation, she said, "Let's just you and me have our own celebration dinner instead." Stanford. God, I was so proud when she got accepted. Full academic scholarship, but I still insisted on paying for everything else. Room and board, textbooks, spending money, study abroad programs. $300,000 over 4 years. Every penny worth it to see her graduate summa cum laude with an MBA at 23. I sold my grandfather's ranch in Montana to fund her education. 500 acres of Harrison family land, in our name since 1892, gone to pay for Chelsea's future. Sarah's family had begged me not to sell it, said it was our heritage, our connection to the past. But what good was heritage if my daughter couldn't reach her full potential? "Dad, are you sure about this?" Chelsea had asked when I told her about the ranch sale. We were sitting in my truck outside the Stanford admissions office, her acceptance letter still warm in her hands. "Honey, that land has been in our family for over a century, but you're going to do things that'll make a bigger impact than cattle ranching ever could. Your great-great-grandfather would understand." She'd cried then, real tears throwing her arms around my neck. "I promise I'll make you proud, Daddy. I promise I'll use this opportunity to build something amazing." And she had built something amazing. By 25, she was working for a top-tier consulting firm in San Francisco, pulling down $200,000 a year, dating Elton Blackwell, whose family owned half of Marin County's real estate. When they got engaged in 2021, I was thrilled. Elton seemed like a solid young man from a good family, Harvard-educated, working at Goldman Sachs, the kind of son-in-law any father would be proud to welcome. Their wedding in September 2022 was a dream come true. Sonoma Valley, 300 guests, Chelsea radiant in a $15,000 dress that I'd bought without hesitation. I walked her down the aisle, my chest swelling with pride as every guest turned to watch my beautiful, brilliant daughter marry the man of her dreams. "You did it, Dad," she whispered as we reached the altar. "You raised me to find a good man and build a beautiful life. Thank you for everything." The reception cost me $180,000, but watching Chelsea dance with her new husband under the string lights we'd hung in the vineyard, I would have paid twice that amount. She was happy. She was secure. She was building the life Sarah and I had always dreamed she'd have. That's why I established the trust fund 3 days after her wedding, $2 million, generating enough investment income to provide her with $50,000 monthly for life. "Consider it an early inheritance," I told her, signing the documents with hands that shook from emotion, not trauma. "You'll never have to worry about money, never have to depend on anyone." "Daddy, this is too much. I can't accept this." "You can and you will. Your mother and I always planned to take care of you, even after we were gone. This way, I get to see you enjoy the security." She'd hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "I love you so much, Dad. You've given me everything. Everything." I'd given her everything. The ranch that had been our family's foundation, my wife's jewelry that Chelsea now wore to charity galas, my company's profits, reinvested in her education and wedding and lifestyle, my time, my energy, my heart, my hopes for the future. Most importantly, I'd given her my trust. Complete, unquestioning, vulnerable trust. That she'd love me even when the war nightmares made me wake up screaming. That she'd understand when crowds triggered my anxiety and I had to leave restaurants early. That she'd see past the broken parts of me to the Father who'd moved heaven and earth to give her the best life possible. Or 3 years after her wedding, our relationship seemed stronger than ever. Weekly dinners at my place or theirs, holiday celebrations, long phone calls where she'd ask about my day and actually listen to my answers. When the PTSD episodes got worse in early 2024, triggered by news coverage of conflicts in the Middle East, Chelsea seemed more caring than ever. "Dad, maybe you should talk to someone professional about these episodes," she'd said gently during one of our Sunday dinners in February. "Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you deserve to feel better." I'd been so grateful for her understanding, her patience with my mental health struggles. When she offered to help manage some of my financial accounts because keeping track of all those investments must be stressful, I'd handed over passwords without hesitation. When she suggested I might benefit from more structure in my daily routine, I'd listened carefully and tried to implement her suggestions. Looking back now, I could see how carefully she'd been building her case, documenting my vulnerable moments, recording my confusion during panic attacks, positioning herself as the responsible daughter caring for her declining father. But in those moments, sitting in restaurants where she'd gently guide me to quieter tables, or at family gatherings where she'd smoothly redirect conversations when I got overwhelmed, I'd thought I was the luckiest father alive. My daughter understood my struggles. My daughter loved me unconditionally. My daughter was preparing to steal my life. But then I found the text messages Chelsea forgot to delete, and I realized the true extent of their deception. It was Thursday evening, October 17th, 2024, when the full scope of their betrayal revealed itself. Chelsea and Elton had come over for our weekly family dinner, something I'd been looking forward to all week. These dinners had become my anchor, the one regular social interaction that didn't trigger my anxiety because it was just family, just people who loved me despite my broken places. We'd eaten the lasagna I'd made using Sarah's old recipe, laughed about Elton's latest golf disasters, and discussed Chelsea's promotion to senior consultant at her firm. Everything felt normal, comfortable, safe. Then Chelsea's laptop crashed while she was showing me photos from their Napa Valley trip. "Dad, can I use your computer to back up these photos? I don't want to lose them." "Of course, honey. You know the password." What I didn't know was that her iCloud account was set to sync across all devices. When she logged in to access her photos, 3 months of text messages downloaded automatically to my computer, and I saw them before she realized what had happened. The messages were organized by conversation thread, and the most recent one made my blood run cold. Chelsea and Elton discussing me like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. October 10th, 2024, 2:47 p.m., Chelsea. Had lunch with Thompson from the estate planning firm. He says Dad's episodes are getting worse. Perfect timing for the conservatorship filing. Elton. How soon can we move forward? Chelsea. He wants to document at least 6 more incidents of instability. I'm recording everything now. October 12th, 2024, 11:23 a.m. Elton. My trust fund lawyer says PTSD makes it easy. Courts love protecting vulnerable adults, especially veterans who can't advocate for themselves. Chelsea. God, sometimes I feel bad about this. He's been such a good father. Elton. Babe, $50,000 a month isn't enough for our lifestyle. Not with the house payments, your shopping, my investment losses. We need the full $15 million. Chelsea. You're right. And honestly, he's becoming more embarrassing every month. The panic attacks in public, the way he zones out during conversations, my friends are starting to notice. October 14th, 2024, 7:15 p.m. Chelsea. Once we control his assets, we can manage everything properly. Put him somewhere he'll be taken care of, but where he can't make any more scenes. Elton. The military disability angle works perfectly. Who questions protecting a damaged veteran? Chelsea. Exactly, and he trusts me completely. Poor broken dad, so grateful for any scrap of attention from his perfect daughter. I read those messages 3 times before the words fully penetrated my consciousness. My daughter, the child I'd raised alone after losing my wife, the young woman I'd sacrificed everything to support, thought I was broken. Not struggling, not healing, not managing a legitimate medical condition. Broken. Damaged goods to be managed and controlled, but it got worse. So much worse. My viewers asked, I delivered. The Wolf's Justice ebook is live. 12 chapters of masculine wisdom, strategic thinking, family protection tactics. Choose your investment, $0 to $35. Link is in the video description or scan the QR code on the screen to get your digital copy today. I scrolled deeper into their conversation history, finding messages that dated back months, revealing this wasn't a spontaneous decision born from recent concerns about my health. This was a calculated long-term strategy to steal my life's work while convincing me they were doing it out of love. August 3rd, 2024, 10:45 a.m. Chelsea. Thompson says we need more evidence of Dad's declining mental state. I'm going to start taking videos during his episodes. Elton. Make sure you get the really bad ones. The court needs to see he can't handle financial decisions. August 15th, 2024, 3:22 p.m. Chelsea. Recorded Dad having a panic attack at the restaurant yesterday. 37 minutes of him being completely non-functional. Thompson says it's exactly what we need. Elton. Perfect. How much longer do you think this will take? Chelsea. Thompson estimates we'll have full conservatorship by Christmas. Then we can access everything. The investment accounts, the real estate, the offshore holdings he thinks we don't know about. September 8th, 2024, 6:17 p.m. Elton. Saw the bank statements from Dad's accounts. He's got way more money than we realized. That cybersecurity sale was just the beginning. Chelsea. I know. I've been managing his passwords for months now. 12 million in various investment accounts plus the trust principal. We're talking about generational wealth. Elton. And he has no idea we're planning this? Chelsea. None. He's so grateful that I spend time with him, so worried about being a burden, that he'd never suspect I'm documenting everything for legal proceedings. September 20th, 2024, 4:33 p.m. Chelsea. Had dinner with Dad last night. He mentioned updating his will again, leaving everything to charity if something happens to him. We need to move faster. Elton. Thompson filed the preliminary conservatorship paperwork yesterday. We just need to establish a pattern of incompetency over the next 2 months. Chelsea. Easy enough. His PTSD episodes are practically on schedule now. Loud noises, crowds, anything that reminds him of Iraq. It's like having a panic button I can push whenever we need evidence. I stared at the screen until the words blurred together, my mind struggling to process the enormity of their betrayal. They weren't just planning to steal my money. They were exploiting my military trauma, weaponizing my PTSD against me, turning my service-connected disability into evidence that I was incompetent to manage my own life. Every family dinner where Chelsea had been so understanding about my anxiety, she'd been studying me like a lab rat, taking mental notes about my triggers and responses. Every time she'd helped me through a panic attack, she'd been gathering ammunition for legal proceedings. Every moment of vulnerability I'd shared with her had been catalogued and prepared for use against me in court. The photos on my desk, Chelsea's graduation, her wedding, family vacations, suddenly looked different. In every image I could now see what I'd missed before. The calculated smile, the performance of affection, the daughter who'd learned to play the role of loving child while planning to destroy her father's life. My phone buzzed with a text message. Chelsea's name appeared on the screen. Thanks for letting me use your computer, Dad. The photos uploaded perfectly. Love you. Even now, even after I'd discovered her conspiracy, she was still performing, still pretending to be the daughter who loved me while preparing legal documents to have me declared mentally incompetent. I walked to my office safe, the biometric lock recognizing my fingerprint with a soft beep. Inside, next to my military medals and Sarah's engagement ring, sat the original trust fund documents. $2 million, signed over with joy and pride, now being used to fund the very lifestyle that made Chelsea see me as insufficient. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I'd hoped never to use. Klaus Weber, private banker at Credit Suisse, a man who specialized in asset protection for people who understood that sometimes family was the greatest threat to financial security. Klaus answered on the second ring, his Swiss accent crisp and professional. Mr. Harrison, what can I do for you today? Klaus, I need to move assets offshore immediately. All of them. And I need to restructure some trusts. There was a pause. Klaus had handled enough family crises to recognize the tone of a man whose world had just collapsed. I see. How quickly do we need to act? I looked at my computer screen, still displaying Chelsea's messages about putting me somewhere I could be taken care of, while she spent my life savings on Beverly Hills real estate. Tonight. We move everything tonight. That's when I realized Chelsea had made a critical mistake. She thought PTSD made me weak and confused. She was about to learn that combat veterans know how to plan strategic operations, especially when someone threatens everything we've built. The next morning, October 18th, 2024, I began the most important mission of my civilian life. Not building a company, not protecting clients from cyber attacks, but protecting myself from the daughter who'd decided my military trauma made me an easy target for financial exploitation. My first call was to Margaret Sterling, estate planning attorney and former JAG officer, who understood both family law and military culture. I'd met Margaret at a veterans networking event 2 years earlier, and she'd impressed me with her no-nonsense approach to protecting service members from predatory family situations. David, Margaret's voice was warm but professional when she answered at 8:15 that morning. What can I do for you? Margaret, I need to discuss a family situation that's become a legal threat. Can we meet today? Of course, emergency consultation at 10:30. Margaret's office in downtown Palo Alto reflected her military background, crisp efficiency, organized case files, American flag in the corner, and photos with clients in uniform. She listened without judgment as I explained Chelsea's conservatorship plan, taking detailed notes and asking pointed questions about evidence and timeline. David, I need you to understand something crucial. Conservatorship proceedings for veterans with PTSD have become increasingly common, and unfortunately, they're often successful, even when inappropriate. My stomach dropped. Meaning? Meaning Chelsea's strategy is legally sound, even if it's morally reprehensible. Courts are trained to err on the side of protection, especially when dealing with combat veterans. If she can document episodes of confusion, memory loss, or poor financial decisions, a judge might grant temporary conservatorship pending full evaluation. But I'm not incompetent. I run a $15 million portfolio successfully. I make rational decisions. I know that, and I believe that. But the legal standard isn't about your actual competency. It's about documented evidence of incompetency. If Chelsea has videos of you during panic attacks, medical records showing PTSD treatment, testimony from witnesses about concerning behavior, she might have a case. The weight of their betrayal settled deeper into my chest. So what can I do? Margaret smiled, the kind of smile I recognized from my days as a Marine officer. It was the expression of someone preparing for battle. We fight back, but we do it smart, and we do it legally. First, we protect your assets from any potential conservatorship order. Over the next 2 hours, Margaret outlined a comprehensive defense strategy: asset protection through offshore trusts, psychological evaluation by independent military psychiatrists, documentation of my current mental competency, and legal challenges to any conservatorship filing. The key is moving your assets beyond the reach of any potential conservator before Chelsea files her petition. Once those papers are submitted, courts can freeze accounts pending investigation. How long do I have? Margaret consulted her notes. Based on their timeline in the messages, I'd estimate 2 to 4 weeks before they file. That gives us enough time to establish protective measures. My second call was to Klaus Weber at Credit Suisse. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was sitting in his private office in San Francisco's financial district, surrounded by the kind of understated luxury that screamed serious money. Klaus was exactly what I'd expected, 50s, impeccably dressed, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd helped wealthy clients protect assets from every conceivable threat, including their own family members. Mr. Harrison, based on our phone conversation, I understand you need immediate asset protection services. My daughter is planning to have me declared mentally incompetent to gain control of my finances. I need to move everything beyond the reach of U.S. courts. Klaus nodded, as if this were a perfectly normal Tuesday request. Unfortunately, this scenario has become quite common. Adult children exploiting elderly parents' cognitive decline or mental health struggles to access inheritances early. I'm not elderly, and my mind is sharp, but I do have PTSD from military service, which they're using against me. I see. Well, the good news is that Swiss banking privacy laws are specifically designed to protect clients from family financial predators. We can establish irrevocable trusts that are completely beyond the jurisdiction of any conservatorship order. Over the next 3 hours, Klaus walked me through a sophisticated asset protection strategy that would make my money disappear from any court's perspective while keeping it fully accessible to me. The process was complex, but legal, establishing multiple trust entities, converting liquid assets to protected forms, creating layers of legal ownership that would take years for any attorney to penetrate. Mr. Harrison, once we implement this structure, your assets will be effectively judgment-proof. No court order, no conservatorship, no family member will be able to access or control these funds. What about the existing trust fund I established for Chelsea? Klaus consulted his notes. That trust can be revoked by the grantor, you, at any time, provided you're mentally competent, which, based on this conversation, you clearly are. Do it. Revoke everything. Transfer the principal to the protected offshore accounts. And the monthly distributions she's been receiving. I thought about Chelsea's text messages, her casual cruelty, her plan to exploit my military disability for personal gain. Cut off immediately, every penny. Klaus made notes with the efficiency of someone who'd handled similar family betrayals countless times. I'll need documentation of your mental competency for our records. Swiss banking regulations require independent verification when family members might claim cognitive impairment. My third call was to Dr. Sarah Kim, a psychiatrist who specialized in military trauma and had been recommended by my Veterans Affairs counselor. Unlike the doctors Chelsea had probably been researching, ones who might be sympathetic to conservatorship proceedings, Dr. Kim understood the difference between PTSD episodes and cognitive impairment. Mr. Harrison, I can have you in for comprehensive cognitive and psychological evaluation tomorrow morning. These assessments are specifically designed to distinguish between trauma-related symptoms and actual mental incompetency. By Friday afternoon, October 20th, 2024, I had everything I needed: legal documentation of my mental competency, offshore trusts protecting my assets, revocation papers for Chelsea's trust fund, and a comprehensive defense strategy against any conservatorship filing, but I wasn't finished, not even close. My final call that week was to Alex Rodriguez, a private investigator who specialized in family financial fraud cases. If Chelsea wanted to document my episodes of instability, I was going to document her episodes of exploitation. Mr. Rodriguez, I need surveillance of my daughter and son-in-law. They're planning to exploit my military disability for financial gain, and I need evidence of their actual motivations and lifestyle. How detailed do you want this surveillance, Mr. Harrison? I looked at my computer screen, still displaying Chelsea's messages about putting me somewhere I could be taken care of, while she enjoyed my money. Everything. I want to know every dollar they spend, every conversation they have about me, every step they take in this conspiracy. When this goes to court, I want documentation that proves beyond any doubt that they're motivated by greed, not concern for my welfare. Alex's report, delivered the following Tuesday, was more damning than I'd even imagined. Detailed financial records showing Chelsea and Elton's extravagant spending patterns, photographs of them celebrating at expensive restaurants while discussing my deteriorating condition, and audio recordings of conversations where they referred to me as their golden goose and meal ticket. Most damaging was video footage of Chelsea practicing fake concern in front of their bathroom mirror, rehearsing the kind of worried daughter performance she'd been giving me for months. "Oh, Dad, I'm so worried about your episodes. Maybe we should consider getting you some professional help." The performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen the real woman in those text messages, I would have believed her completely. But now I knew the truth. My daughter wasn't concerned about my mental health. She was exploiting it, She wasn't trying to protect me from financial predators. She was the financial predator. Are you Team David? Let me know what you would have done. And don't forget to hit that like button if you're loving this story. The moment Chelsea called to schedule our monthly financial review meeting, I knew it was time. What she discovered next would change everything forever. November 15th, 2024, was a Friday. I remember because Chelsea always scheduled our financial meetings for Friday afternoons, claiming it helped her wrap up the week with family business. I now understood these meetings were actually intelligence-gathering sessions, opportunities for her to assess my mental state and document any confusion about my investments or estate planning. "Dad, can we meet at 3 o'clock? I want to review your portfolio performance and discuss some planning opportunities." "Of course, sweetheart. Should I prepare anything specific? Just have your account statements ready. Elton has some ideas about diversifying your holdings." I smiled at the phone, knowing this would be the last time Chelsea would underestimate my strategic thinking abilities. "I'll have everything prepared." That morning I made my final preparations. Klaus Weber confirmed that all assets had been successfully transferred to Swiss-domiciled trusts, completely beyond the reach of any U.S. court order. Margaret Sterling had filed protective legal documents that would automatically trigger if anyone attempted to initiate conservatorship proceedings against me. Dr. Kim's comprehensive psychological evaluation sat in my desk drawer, 47 pages of detailed testing proving my complete mental competency and cognitive sharpness. Most importantly, Alex Rodriguez had delivered the final surveillance report, including audio recordings of Chelsea and Elton's most recent conversations about their timeline for having me declared incompetent. At 2:45, I heard Elton's BMW pull into my driveway. Through my office window, I watched them walk toward my front door, Chelsea carrying the leather portfolio I'd bought her for graduation, Elton checking his Rolex with the impatience of someone who considered this meeting an inconvenient necessity. They had no idea they were walking into an ambush. "Hey, Dad!" Chelsea's voice rang with artificial cheerfulness as I opened the door. She hugged me tightly, the same embrace that had once meant everything to me. Now it felt like being hugged by a cobra. "Hello, sweetheart. Elton." I shook my son-in-law's hand, noting how he avoided eye contact. Guilt, perhaps, or simply the discomfort of someone who'd been plotting against his host. We settled into my living room, the same space where I'd taught Chelsea to read, where we'd watched movies together after Sarah died, where I'd celebrated every milestone of her life with pride and joy. Now it felt like a courtroom where I was about to deliver a verdict. "So, Dad, let's review your accounts." Chelsea opened her portfolio with professional efficiency. "I've been tracking your spending patterns, and I'm a bit concerned about some irregularities." Irregularities. Elton leaned forward, his investment banker persona fully activated. "David, we've noticed some large transfers recently, unusual transactions that might indicate confusion about your finances." I almost laughed. They'd noticed my assets disappearing and assumed it was evidence of mental decline rather than strategic asset protection. "Can you be more specific?" Chelsea pulled out printed bank statements, highlighted in yellow where large sums had been moved between accounts. "These transfers, Dad. $12 million moved in the past month. That's not like you to make such dramatic changes without discussing them with family." "You're right, Chelsea. Those were significant financial decisions." "We're just worried," Elton added, his voice carrying that practiced concern I now recognized as performance art. These kinds of impulsive financial decisions can be a sign of cognitive decline, especially in veterans with trauma histories. I set down the bank statements and looked directly into Chelsea's eyes. "You're absolutely right to be concerned. These were very significant decisions. Dad, maybe we should schedule an appointment with a financial advisor, someone who can help you make more stable choices." Chelsea's voice was gentle, caring, exactly the tone she'd been practicing in front of her mirror. "Actually, I did consult with financial professionals, several of them, in fact." I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a thick manila folder. "I think you'll find their recommendations very interesting." I opened the folder and spread documents across my coffee table like evidence at a crime scene. Bank statements showing zero balances in all domestic accounts, trust revocation papers, offshore asset protection agreements, and printed copies of every text message Chelsea and Elton had sent about me over the past 4 months. The colour drained from Chelsea's face as she recognized her own words, staring back at her from the pages. Elton went rigid in his chair, his financial advisor mask slipping to reveal something closer to panic. "What is this?" Chelsea's voice came out as a whisper. "This is the evidence of your conspiracy to exploit my PTSD for financial gain." My voice stayed level, controlled, carrying the authority I'd learned as a Marine officer. "These are your text messages discussing conservatorship proceedings, your recordings of my panic attacks, your celebration of my mental health struggles." Elton started to stand. "David, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Sit down." The command came out with enough military authority that Elton dropped back into his chair instinctively. "You're going to listen to every word I have to say." I picked up the first document, holding it where they could see the Credit Suisse letterhead. "As of yesterday morning, every asset I own has been transferred to irrevocable Swiss trusts. The 12 million you were so excited about, gone. Beyond the reach of any US court, any conservatorship order, any legal proceeding you might file." Chelsea's hands were shaking now. "Dad, you're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years." I picked up Dr. Kim's psychological evaluation. "This is a comprehensive cognitive assessment performed by Dr. Sarah Kim, a psychiatrist who specializes in military trauma. 47 pages documenting my complete mental competency, my rational decision-making capabilities, and my full understanding of financial management." I watched Elton do quick calculations in his head, probably adding up their monthly expenses and realizing how quickly their lifestyle would collapse without my support. "The trust fund you've been accessing, Chelsea? Revoked as of Monday morning. The $2 million principal has been transferred to the David Harrison Foundation for Veterans' Mental Health." "You can't do this," Chelsea's composure finally cracked. "That money was mine. You promised it to me." "I promised it to my daughter, the daughter who loved me unconditionally, the daughter who would support me through my struggles, not exploit them." I stood up, my 6'2" frame casting a shadow over their chairs. "You're not that daughter." Elton tried one last desperate gambit. "David, you're having an episode right now. This kind of paranoid behavior is exactly why we're concerned about your mental state." I walked to my computer and pulled up the audio file Alex Rodriguez had recorded 3 days earlier. Chelsea and Elton's voices filled my living room, discussing their conservatorship timeline and celebrating their brilliant strategy over champagne at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Poor broken dad, so grateful for any scrap of attention from his perfect daughter. Chelsea's recorded voice said through my speakers, "The old soldier never knew what hit him." Elton's laughter echoed in the sudden silence. I turned off the recording and looked at their faces. Chelsea was crying now, but I could see her mind working, trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. Elton had gone pale, probably calculating the career implications of being caught in an elder abuse conspiracy. "Margaret Sterling has already filed restraining orders against both of you. Any attempt to pursue conservatorship will result in elder abuse charges and federal fraud prosecution." Chelsea tried once more, her voice breaking with what might have been genuine emotion. "Daddy, I never meant to hurt you. We were just trying to help." "Help?" I interrupted, my voice carrying the kind of steel that had once commanded Marines in combat. "You recorded my panic attacks as evidence. You researched ways to have me declared mentally incompetent. You planned to steal my life's work and warehouse me in some facility where I couldn't interfere with your spending. It wasn't like that. Chelsea, I heard your exact words, a poor broken dad so grateful for any scrap of attention." "That's how you see me. That's how you've always seen me." Elton finally found his voice. "David, maybe we can work something out. A payment plan or... The only thing you're going to work out is how to pay your bills without my money." I walked to my front door and held it open. "You have 30 seconds to leave my house before I call the police." They gathered their things in stunned silence, the portfolio of documents they'd planned to use against me forgotten on my coffee table. As they reached the door, Chelsea turned back one last time. "Dad, please, I'm your daughter, your only child. You can't just abandon me." I looked at the young woman I'd raised, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. You abandoned me first, Chelsea. The moment you decided my PTSD made me weak, instead of understanding that it made me a survivor. I closed the door behind them and turned the deadbolt with a satisfying click. Looking back 6 months later, I discovered that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about who stands by you during your darkest moments. Some people reveal their true character when they think you're vulnerable, and Chelsea revealed hers. By Christmas 2024, the consequences of their failed exploitation scheme had completely transformed their lives. The Beverly Hills house Chelsea had been so proud of, foreclosed in January when they couldn't make the $8,000 monthly payments without my support, the matching Porsches they'd bought with trust fund money, repossessed when their credit card payments went into default. Elton lost his position at Goldman Sachs in February when the conservatorship conspiracy became public knowledge through legal filings. Financial firms take a dim view of employees who participate in elder abuse schemes, especially when those schemes target military veterans. His professional reputation was destroyed, and he became unemployable in the banking industry overnight. Chelsea's consulting firm asked for her resignation in March when clients learned about her attempt to exploit her disabled veteran father. The story had spread through San Francisco's tight professional community, and no corporate client wanted to work with someone capable of such calculated family betrayal. But the most satisfying consequence was watching their marriage disintegrate under financial pressure. Without my money to maintain their lifestyle, they were forced to confront the reality that their relationship had been built on spending someone else's fortune. By April, they were fighting constantly about money, blame, and the spectacular failure of their scheme. I learned all this through Alex Rodriguez's continued surveillance, not because I was seeking revenge, but because I needed to protect myself from any future attempts at financial manipulation. The court-ordered psychological evaluation that Chelsea had finally petitioned for was dismissed when my legal team presented evidence of her exploitation scheme. The judge was particularly unimpressed with Chelsea's attempt to weaponize my military service against me. Ms. Harrison Blackwell, Judge Patricia Morrison said during the final hearing in May 2025, "Your father served this country with honor, and attempting to exploit his service-connected disability for personal financial gain is not only morally reprehensible but potentially criminal. This conservatorship petition is dismissed with prejudice. As for me, my life improved dramatically once I stopped subsidizing people who saw my trauma as a business opportunity." The David Harrison Foundation for Veterans Mental Health has already provided counseling services to over 300 combat veterans struggling with PTSD. Knowing that my money is helping other warriors heal from their invisible wounds has given my wealth a purpose that shopping sprees and luxury cars never could. I moved to a veteran-friendly community in Carmel by the Sea, where my neighbors understand nightmares and panic attacks because they've experienced them too. I'm dating Dr. Patricia Kim, a former Army medic who sees my PTSD not as a weakness to be exploited, but as evidence of strength and survival. When I have difficult days, she doesn't record them for future use against me. She sits with me and reminds me that I'm safe. My mental health has actually improved significantly since cutting Chelsea out of my life. Turns out, much of my anxiety was caused by the subconscious stress of being constantly evaluated and judged by someone I trusted completely. When you don't have to worry about every vulnerable moment being catalogued as evidence of incompetency, it's easier to focus on healing. The hardest part wasn't losing the money I'd given Chelsea over the years. Money can be replaced. The hardest part was accepting that the daughter I'd loved unconditionally had never actually loved me back. She'd loved my bank account, my generosity, my willingness to sacrifice everything for her happiness, but she'd never loved me. That realization hurt worse than any roadside bomb in Iraq, worse than losing Sarah to cancer, worse than any panic attack I'd ever experienced. But it also freed me from the prison of trying to earn affection from someone incapable of genuine love. Ever wonder how some men turn betrayal into empire? The Wolf's Justice eBook reveals the blueprint: real psychology, proven tactics, zero fluff. Name your investment, $0 to $25. Link is in the video description, or scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Let's continue. Last month, I received a letter from Chelsea, the first communication since that November confrontation. She was asking for forgiveness, claiming she'd been influenced by bad advice and that she never meant to hurt me. The letter was probably written by her attorney as part of some legal strategy to regain access to family money. I read it once, then fed it through my paper shredder. Some bridges once burned should stay burned. The David Harrison Foundation continues to grow, now managing over $8 million in assets dedicated to helping veterans transition successfully to civilian life. Every month, I receive letters from former service members who've been helped by our programs. Men and women who understand that PTSD isn't a character flaw or a sign of weakness, but a natural response to unnatural experiences. These letters mean more to me than any expression of fake love from a daughter who saw my service-connected disability as an opportunity for financial exploitation. They remind me that my military service had meaning, that my struggle with trauma has purpose, and that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. 3 weeks ago, I received a wedding invitation. Not from Chelsea, I haven't heard from her since the restraining order was finalized, but from Dr. Patricia Kim. She'd met a fellow veteran through our foundation's counseling programs, and they wanted me to officiate their ceremony. Standing in front of 2 people who'd found love through shared understanding of military trauma, I realized that this was what family was supposed to feel like: support without exploitation, love without conditions, acceptance of the whole person, including the broken parts. As I pronounced them husband and wife, I thought about the daughter I'd raised and the daughter she'd chosen to become. I felt sadness for the relationship we'd never have, but no regret about the choices I'd made to protect myself from her exploitation. During the reception, the bride's father approached me, a retired Navy SEAL who'd heard about my situation through the veteran community. "David, I want you to know how much respect I have for how you handled your family situation. Too many of us get taken advantage of by people who should protect us. Thank you, it wasn't easy, but it was necessary. My daughter asked me to tell you something. She said you proved that being broken doesn't mean being weak, that surviving trauma makes us stronger, not more vulnerable." I looked across the reception at the bride, radiant in her wedding dress, surrounded by friends and family who celebrated her happiness without expecting payment in return. This was what I'd wanted for Chelsea. Genuine love, real connection, the kind of relationships built on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. But Chelsea had chosen a different path. She'd chosen to see my trauma as weakness rather than survival, my generosity as stupidity rather than love, my trust as an opportunity rather than a gift. That was her choice to make, and these were the consequences she'd have to live with. The foundation continues to thrive, now providing services to over 500 veterans annually. My story has become part of our outreach program, helping other military families recognize the warning signs of financial exploitation and protect themselves from predatory relatives. Because here's what I learned through this painful experience: loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. Being a good father doesn't require funding your child's conspiracy against you. And having PTSD doesn't make you vulnerable. It makes you a survivor who's strong enough to protect yourself from anyone, including family members who mistake trauma for opportunity. Chelsea thought she was dealing with a broken old soldier who'd be grateful for any scrap of affection. Instead, she discovered that Marines don't abandon their posts, even when the enemy wears a familiar face and calls itself family. The trust fund she'd been accessing for 3 years, now funding counseling services for veterans whose families actually support their recovery. The monthly allowance she'd spent on luxury cars and designer clothes, now paying for PTSD research that might help other warriors heal from invisible wounds. Her money is gone, but her father's honor has been restored. The Marine who'd served his country with distinction had finally learned to serve himself with the same dedication. Sometimes the most important battle you'll ever fight is the one that protects your right to exist with dignity, even when the people trying to take that dignity away share your DNA. Chelsea called me broken, but broken things can be repaired, rebuilt, made stronger than they were before. What she revealed about herself the willingness to exploit her father's military trauma for personal gain. That kind of moral poverty can't be fixed. I sleep better now, not because the nightmares have stopped, but because I'm no longer afraid that someone I trust is recording them for future use against me. I wake up each morning knowing that every relationship in my life is genuine, that every person who claims to care about me actually does. The daughter I raised is gone, replaced by a stranger who saw dollar signs where love should have been. But the Marines who stand with me now, the veterans who understand that trauma is not a character defect, the community that values service over selfishness, they've become the family I should have had all along. What's the most satisfying moment of justice you've witnessed against someone who exploited vulnerability? Share your story in the comments, and if this inspired you, smash that subscribe button for more incredible tales of justice served. How would you have handled discovering your own child was planning to exploit your disability for money? Let me know your thoughts below.